right, so it's been a minute, but we got Jeff back for another battle report. We're going to play the all-out war mission. We got a smaller table set up today. This is a 4x4 because we're only playing 1,500 points, just kind of a light, easy game today. As you can see, we got some of Jeff's great buildings set up, some craters, and some ruins that he's put together for us. We're counting the craters as difficult terrain, the ruins as obstructing, and then some small, medium, and large buildings across the battlefield. So if you haven't played All-Out War before, this is an unusual mission in the sense that the deployment zone is just the two halves of the table. And infiltrating units are allowed to deploy in the opponent's deployment zone while still obeying the 4-inch exclusion zone rule. So just a fun game today, taking it pretty easy. And we're going to do Jeff's mixed Alpha Legion and Death Guard against my Mechanicum. So we're going to cut here, and when we come back, we'll be taking you through his army. Okay, so this is the Alpha Legion portion of Jeff's force. So start over here with Kratos, I suppose.
Yeah, my HQ is a Kratos, the tank commander, with 5 Kratoses. I have a 2-man Outrider bike unit. I have 8 Terminator bases. I have 2 units of Proteus Land Raiders with tactical squad in them, each having 2 missile launchers. I have another TAC squad with 2 missile launchers. I have the Derrideos with the autocannon variant, right? Yeah, they're all the same. And then over here, I've got the commander in his drop pod. Each detachment, is 8 bases of infantry, 4 of which will have missile launchers, and that's twice. And then I have 1 unit of Leviathans with the better gun against armor. And then I have 1 unit of 4 with the weapon that is better against infantry. And that's my 1,500 point on the dot. Oh, and one of the Land Raiders had an upgrade for 5 points because I had it left with if I could find the model, with a multi-melter, which is that one. Probably have to mark it with something because I can't tell, it's so small.
Yeah, they all have multi-melters, it looks like.
They all have heavy bolters except for that one.
Oh, okay.
Which you can't buy the heavy bolter, which is kind of weird. But
all right, well, we're going to go over to my army, and we'll check in with you there. All right, so this is my 1,500 points of Mechanicum that I'm going to be playing today. Pretty small army. Going all Mechanicum, no Pioneer Company, no Solar Auxilia supporting me today, no aircraft, no anti-air at all, really. I've got 2 formations. I have the Cybernetica cohort right there that you see, and then the Ordo Reductor subdivision on the right here. So starting with that, we have the usual array of Thanatar. I've got 2 detachments of 3 with the Plasma Mortar, and then 1 detachment of 2 with the Solex Heavy Las. And then backing them all up is a detachment of 4 Myrmidon Destructors. And then I'm also taking 6 of the new Krios tanks, which unfortunately I haven't gotten around to painting yet. But I had to send my airbrush in to get serviced. Hopefully that will get me back into the painting desk. The next formation is the Cybernetica cohort. I got my Archmagos Prime here with 2 detachments of 6 Thalax, 2 detachments of 2 Castellax, and then 1 detachment of 10 Tech Thralls. And they're all supported, or all the automata are supported by Tech Priest Auxilia. You saw, probably I didn't mention in the other formation, there are some supporting the Thanatar. And then we got my Warhound here. I need to give it a name, but it is a Legio Ossidax Warhound. I've got the Vulcan Mega Bolter and the Graviton Eradicator, I think is the name. So it'll be helping me knock down buildings and taking out any heavy armor that comes my way. So yeah, that's it, guys. 1,500 points, or a little less than 1,500 of Mechanicum. And when we come back, we will be deployed and ready to go. All right, so this is the board after deployment and forward deployment and infiltration. So I'll go through my setup first, since mine is a little bit more conventional. You can see on the left, I set up my my 6 Krios tanks, along with some Thalax and Castellax, guarding the left objective, along with some Thanatar right there, just providing some anti-building and anti-armor support. In the central building here, I've got my Tech Thrall Covenant controlling this objective and supported by 2 Thanatar with the Sol-X Heavy Las. In the center, I've got 3 more Thanatar with the Plasma Mortars, and those are squaring off with the Kratos there. I managed to put them in some difficult terrain, but they are also getting outflanked by those Land Raiders there. So I think they're in some difficulty. We'll see how that goes. In this building right here, covering this 3rd objective on the right, I've got another detachment of Thalax, 4 Myrmidons, and then last but not least, my Warhound. So we're going to see how the Warhound does. I've given up a lot of points to take him. So we'll see how much he helps me against this tide of armor that's coming in. So Jeff, why don't you take us through your deployment? Do your deployment first, and then tell us what you did with your forward deployment and your infiltrate separately.
Well, on my deployment, I wanted to have a strong center, so therefore I put the Kratos in the middle. These infantry obviously are guarding this objective. These infantry are obviously guarding this objective behind this building. So yeah, I pushed for a strong center. I even centered my forward deployment stuff so I could go either way, so I could shift where I want power. But I'm going to probably attempt to pincer you. I did deploy infiltrators back there, Terminators, eight bases. They're off on the side. And I infiltrated over here, which didn't have many options with squishy little infantry. Yeah, and then my forward deploy, I push these forward. So I'm going to try to isolate that unit and destroy it. This is going to be tough. I switched these over here to engage these. I've got some missile launchers over here and then possibly these. I didn't give them any. I didn't decide to do those with the forward. These got forward deployment automatically. It comes with the unit. So it wasn't an Alpha Legion thing. Any Legion can do that with the Proteus Land Raiders. So that's pretty much was my plan. And then I've got drop pods coming in, which on turn 1, so that could be pretty bloody. But they could die on drop, so.
That is true.
So.
All right, guys. Well, that is our deployment and infiltrate and forward deployment. So I don't think we talked about secondary objectives. I have chosen plant the standard, and that's kind of why I weighted my left side here. I'm going to give it to my Thalax, and they're going to be pushing up to try to get that standard planted. And then, Jeff, you took control of the battlefield, right? Which makes sense with a drop pod force. So, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and end there. We will do movement turn 1 and check in with you after that. All right, so this is the end of movement turn 1. See quite a drastic change in the table. I didn't do too much. I had everything on first fire for the most part. A bit of advance here and there. The main elements for me were I pulled my Krios back. I should have put them on first fire to engage Jeff's Land Raiders. But I put them on advance. Maybe actually that was a good decision in the end because he moved up those Daradeos with their heavy missiles, which are going to tear through the Krios. So I was able to get them, I think, most of the way out of range. So we'll see if they actually make it through the first turn. And then I'll let Jeff talk you through what he did. For the most part, everything else of mine just stayed put. So why don't we start over here on the right, Jeff, and just talk us through what you did here.
Just pretty much put a lot of things on first fire, as you could see. I dropped in these guys, jumped out of the drop pod. They're just going to shoot and try to kill this stuff. The same with that back there. So I'm just trying to envelop you. And then I charged those guys with the Terminators. I've never charged these guys before Terminators, so I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll find out. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've done. A lot of first fire, see what happens.
Not too much for a 15. I mean, it's a 1,500 point game, so there's not too much going on, but that's sometimes nice. We got a little bit of a more relaxing game. So we're gonna do combat, and we'll check in with you after that. All right, guys. Here we are at the end of combat, turn 1. So we'll start off right here in the middle. This was the site of, I think, most of the exchange of fire. The Thanatar took fire from the Kratos, the Land Raiders, and your missile launchers in the building, right, Jeff? And they took 2 wounds. So the combination of the cover, Battlesmith, really kept them alive for this turn anyway. We'll see if they fare any better.
I caused more wounds. It's just you were able to.
Yeah, you caused a lot of wounds, but I just was able to
the
save.
saves were just ridiculously good.
So let's see. The Thalax here didn't really have much of a target, so we fired at the drop pods and killed a couple of them. And a combination of the Myrmidon Destructors and the Vulcan Megabolter from the Warhound were able to destroy the 4 Leviathans that dropped down in the drop pods. Over here, I think the return fire from the Thanatar were able to destroy 1 of the Kratos, and then you can see one of them's got a wound at the back, and that was from the Graviton Eradicator on the Warhound. In the back here, the Terminators killed my Tech Priest Auxilia and 1 of the Thanatar. The other one's still hanging on, but probably not too long for this world. The 4 Leviathans that dropped down in these drop pods moved up, and then a combination of, I think it was the fire from the Thanatar, right? No. It was the Castellax.
Yep.
The Castellax were able to do 2 wounds, kill 2 Leviathans, and broke them. They've fallen back to here. They survived both of the wounds that they suffered from passing through my enemy detachment, or from an enemy detachment, and that was the Thanatar and the Castellax there. And then over here on the left, the Krios, I showed you, we fell back in the movement phase, but I was able to keep out of range of the deadly fire from the Derrideos. But the Land Raiders were able to do a couple of wounds, and we've got those 2 shown right there. That's about it, I think. Did I miss anything, Jeff?
I don't think so.
So Jeff still has a couple of detachments of drop pods to bring in. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, just you talked about the combat. So.
I did, yeah.
So pretty bad first round for me. I took a pretty heavy beating. So yeah, that's all. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap this turn up, and we will check in with you at the end of movement turn 2. All right, guys. Here we are at the end of movement turn 2. Pretty sedate on the right. Left my Warhound and my Myrmidons in place. Thalax fell back to get out of range of the missile launchers in that building at the far right end of the table there. In the center here, Land Raiders stayed put. My Thanatar stayed put. Krios maneuvered towards the western left end of the table. In the rear here, my Castellax charged in, trying to take some of the heat off of the Thanatar. We'll see what happens. Tech Draw stayed put. Thanatar have also stayed put on first fire orders. Jeff's Leviathan charged into my Castellax. Overwatch Fire did another wound, and then they failed their morale check. But as we learned in one of our games quite a while back now, actually, the Leviathan still gets to make contact, so I assume from my reading of the rules that he will still fight in the combat phase. There's no penalty for being on fallback orders in combat that I can see. Seems like there should be, but we'll leave that maybe for another errata. I fell my Krios back again. Again, just trying to get into a good firing position with them. And then on the left here, I left my Thalax in this ruined building. Jeff dropped in his infantry and maneuvered them up to try to take the building from me. So I think the only other major movement was just the Deradeos maneuvering to get into a better firing position. And that's about it for this turn, guys. We're going to go ahead and do combat, and we'll check in with you after that. All right, this is the end of combat turn 2. Let's start over here again. Thalax didn't have any targets. Did stay out of missile launcher range, which is good. I fired the Myrmidons into the Kratos. We did a couple wounds, and the Warhound was able to do a couple more wounds as well. And I think the Thanatar did a couple wounds as well before they were wiped out by fire from the Kratos. Jeff used the close range weapon, cut through the Battlesmith ability. So the Archmagos is sitting there all on his lonesome. Over here, the engagement was a tie. My lone Thanatar was taken down by the Terminators there. And then the Castellax suffered a wound, but did destroy 2 of the Terminators they were in combat with. We did not do this combat, so we'll do that here in a minute. I fired my Krios at the Land Raiders in the distance there, but didn't do any damage, didn't get any hits. And I think that's about it. Over here, the Thalax fired on the Marines that came out of the drop pods, did 6 casualties, took a couple in return. And then the Deradeos used their missiles to knock out 2 of the remaining 3 Thanatar that were holding down this flank. So we're going to go ahead and do that combat, and then we'll move on to the next turn. The score is tied right now. We both have control of 3 objectives. So we're going to go ahead and move on to turn 3, and we'll check in with you after movement. All right, guys, this is the end of movement turn 3. Not too much over here on the right. Just kind of shuffled my Warhound back to keep it out of range of the more deadly envelope of the Kratos' cannon. Myrmidons are still in this building here. Thalax moved back up, looking to contest this push by Jeff's infantry and the eventual push by the infantry and the Land Raiders there. Archmagos is hanging out still in the difficult terrain. And over here, in the combat with the Castellax and the Terminators, I got off a charge. So we'll see how that combat goes moving forward. Moved my Krios back still, looking to duel with the Land Raiders, and left my Thanatar and the Castellax here on the left. And then over here, Jeff's 2 remaining missile launchers and my Thalax are probably going to be exchanging fire. In the center, I moved my Tech Thralls up to claim the objective. Jeff responded by bringing in his Alpha Legion Outriders and dropping down his infantry in the drop pod. Land Raiders moved up. Leviathan's still there. And then the Deradeos as well. So kind of coming down to the wire, I think. Probably this turn will be the turn of decision. But we'll go ahead and do combat, and we'll check in with you after that. All right, guys, so this is the end of combat turn 3. I guess we'll start over here. Lost my last Thanatar. The Krios were able to knock out, I believe, all 3 of the Land Raiders there in the distance from fire from their lightning cannons. Over here, combat was, again, indecisive between the Castellax and the Terminators. And over here, Kratos maneuvered up the center of the table and exchanged some fire between them, the Myrmidon Destructors, and my Warhound. I was able to destroy 1, but the Warhound didn't really do too much. I think the Myrmidon Destructor are actually the ones that killed that remaining, that one you see there. Let's see. Took a wound on my Archmagos Prime. Took a few wounds on my Tech Thralls here in the center. And that's about it as far as combat goes. So fairly calm, not too much to say. I think we might play another turn. We might call it here. It's even. As far as victory points go, we still both controlled the the objectives that we started from the beginning of the game. So yeah, so we are going to talk that through and then come back to you in a minute. All right, guys. So yeah, we're gonna call the game there. I think it's probably a draw at this point. It's getting a little late in the evening for us, so we're gonna just call the game. Seems like it's more or less of a deadlock at this point. So I think I've got this objective pretty solid. This one in the back. Got the Kratos pushing up the center here, but I think I feel fairly secure being able to fend them off with the Warhound and the Myrmidons. So just given all that, I think we're going to call the game. And we hope you enjoyed the video, enjoyed the battle report, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.